There are some models out there that have withstood the test of time, and the Toyota 4Runner is definitely one of them. It has exemplified everything buyers are looking for out of SUVs: long-lasting, durable, capable, and rugged. We have seen numerous generations over the past decades, but now for 2025, we have something, in my opinion, is very, very different. Yes, outwardly it looks like a 4Runner, but what's powering it is a Turbo 4. And that has created a lot of controversy among purists and loyalists to the 4Runner name. And in today's video, we're going to check out what the 4Runner has to offer here at around $50,000. We're going to check out what this vehicle is providing in regards to the creature comforts, amenities, and technology, and more importantly, take it out for a quick test drive to see how it compares to its closest rivals. Now, before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout and thank you to AutoFair Toyota in Tewksbury, Massachusetts for letting me come down here to check out the Toyota 4Runner. I've been waiting a long time to see this vehicle in person. Their link will be in the description below, so you can check out their extensive Toyota inventory. So as always, let's begin with that pricing. For the 2025 Toyota 4Runner TRD off-road we have today, you're looking at a starting cost of just under $50,000. In this price range, even within the Toyota product line, there are a number of choices here. You can go with a unibody chassis SUV or a body-on-frame. For your body-on-frame offerings, it's basically two models under 70 grand. It's the 4Runner and Toyota Land Cruiser. You can go back and forth, compare and contrast, and find the right vehicle for you. But then when you take a look at the rivals, you can go in two different directions. You can compare the 4Runner to a Honda Pilot or Passport, a Ford Explorer, maybe even a Hyundai Palisade. But then for the body-on-frame offerings in this market, it's the Ford Bronco, Jeep Wrangler, that Toyota Land Cruiser, and maybe even the Land Rover Defender on the higher end. I think the big difference, though, for the 4Runner is that, for one, it's a more specific type of buyer looking at this vehicle. It's not going to be that unique buyer looking to take off the doors and the roof. You're looking for a year-round experience, an SUV that can take you through some deep snow, take you through some harsh winters, and also, when you are going off-road, you can take on those trails. But with the 4Runner, I think it's more well-rounded, but we'll dive into that later on throughout the video. Design-wise here with the TRD off-road, you have a very aggressive look with the cladding for the wheel arches, also functional side air curtains. Love to see that. But also the 33-inch tires with 18-inch alloys. Those look menacing. You can take on that different type of terrain. Now up front, you are going to have LED headlights, but incandescent turn signals. Kind of sad to see. LED fog lights, then the TRD mesh grille, which looks really nice here for our model today. Then for the lower portion of the front bumper, you're going to have those two tow hook mounts out of sight. So when you have that Jeep owner or Ford owner that's stuck in the mud, you can tow them out. Now, speaking of towing here, with the 4Runner that we have here today, you have a towing capacity of 6,000 pounds, so really cool. Then as you make your way over to the side profile, the one thing I do want to point out here is that you are going to have a ground clearance of 9.1 inches, also Bilstein shock absorbers. So you're going to take on those bumps and imperfections very easily here with this SUV. Also, coming standard will be running boards. So if you're short like me, you can have easy access inside the 4Runner. Now, you are going to have cladding matched side mirror caps with turn signal indicators that will match those fender flares that we have on the TRD off-road. You're also going to have blind spot detection for added safety. And then also you will have the ability to store some luggage on the top of your 4Runner as well with this configuration. You have that TRD off-road badge here for the C-pillar. Really cool stuff. And then also you have the cladding matched door handles as well. Then as you make your way around to the back, the first thing to note here, and I really like to see this, is that window for the C-pillar. I think it gives this vehicle a unique appearance. But then you are going to have LED taillights in that square design, which I really like here. Again, it gives you a pickup truck look to this SUV. You're going to have the 4Runner badge being stamped out on the liftgate, which is pretty cool, also very trendy in this market. Then for the lower portion of the rear bumper, you're going to have that tow hook mount there, and you will have an exhaust outlet. So really clean looking SUV. I really like what the 4Runner is offering for this generation. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And while we're taking a look at the rear fascia, might as well go over the cargo area and dimensions for the 2025 Toyota 4Runner. Now, interestingly enough though, with the TRD off-road, you are not going to receive a power liftgate. That needs to be addressed in future model years. But inside, behind the second row seats, you're looking at right on 48.5 cubic feet of room. I personally think when it comes to the cargo area, that makes up for the lack of a power liftgate and then some. This is very much on par with other body-on-frame SUVs in this price range, and it is slightly better than some of the unibody chassis SUVs as well. So if you're looking for a large vehicle that can accommodate all your equipment if you are going skiing and snowboarding or going camping during the summer, this might be a great choice. Now, as you can tell, there are some cup holders back here. It's mostly because with the 4Runner, unlike that Land Cruiser, you can go with an optional third row, but that's not available for this trim. If you were to get a 3-row version of the 4Runner, behind the third row seats, you're looking at right on 13 cubic feet of room, which really isn't that useful in my opinion. So if you don't need to accommodate 7 people overall in your 4Runner, I would say just go with a 5-seater configuration. Then when you decide to lower the second row seats, you're looking at 90 cubic feet of room. This would outclass a lot of 3-row SUVs in this market, but also, to put everything into perspective, a Toyota Grand Highlander, a legitimate 3-row SUV, when you lower the third and second row seats, you can have a combined cargo area of 97 cubic feet. So the 4Runner isn't too far off of that. So I think if you're looking for a cooler SUV at around 50 grand, you don't need a third row, this is going to be a great choice. Then we get to a big question a lot of you are probably asking, and that is your spare tire. That's how to meet the vehicle for easier access, and at least it's there if you do encounter a flat on those road trips or travels. Powering our 4Runner today is going to be a 2.4-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, producing 278 horsepower and 317 pound-feet of torque. It is paired with an 8-speed automatic transmission. Now, I know a lot of you have some thoughts here on this engine because Toyota dropped the V6, and you guys have been complaining about this engine in the Tacoma. But for the 4Runner, it might actually work. I have my own thoughts and opinions on this engine that I'll dive into later on during the test drive. Now, you can go with a hybrid 4-cylinder if you so desire for better performance, but this engine might be all you really need. Now, I think more importantly, though, is going to be the transmission here, because for this generation, you get the 8-speed, whereas last generation, you got a 5-speed auto. This is going to feel a bit more spry and quick in a straight line. Also, I think it's going to be a bit more engaging as well. You are going to have part-time 4-wheel drive, which is a huge difference compared to some rivals out there from Honda with that Passport, Pilot, and even the Ford Explorer. This is going to give you a lot more capability when you are taking on the elements, but this would be very much in line with a Ford Bronco and Jeep Wrangler. And then lastly, but probably more importantly, is going to be that fuel economy. You're looking at right on 19 miles per gallon in the city and 25 miles per gallon on the highway, which is very truck-like and body-on-frame-like. So if you're looking for a more fuel-efficient option out there, you're going to be sacrificing quite a bit when it comes to the off-road capability. Hopping inside the Toyota 4Runner TRD off-road, there are a number of surprises, and it begins with the seats. So you would think that for an SUV coming in at around $50,000, you would receive maybe Softex upholstery, leather seats. Nope, that isn't the case. With this model, we have cloth upholstery for both the driver and passenger. These seats are heated, but both sides are manually adjustable, very similar to that Toyota Land Cruiser we had featured a couple of months ago. But I'm not complaining though, because these seats are actually pretty comfortable for what they are. The bolstering is aggressive, and this is a great setup if you are someone who is going to be going off-road. Now, some of you might prefer a water repellent upholstery, but these seats will be easy to clean if you are tracking in dirt, snow, and mud throughout the year. Also, when you are going on those longer road trips to the mountains to ski and snowboard or to go camping, I think these seats will provide a good amount of comfort here where you won't be dealing with any type of fatigue on those 2, 3, or 4-hour journeys. But the surprises continue on though as we take a look at this steering wheel. Very beefy with aggressive 10-2 and firm 9-3 grips. A lot of SUVs in this market are not going to provide that. So I'm already liking what we have here to begin with, just being stationary. So I'm looking forward to what this SUV is going to provide in the corners on that test drive. Now you will have buttons on the left side of the steering wheel, which will control your full digital gauge cluster. And when it comes to this digital gauge cluster, I have no idea why Toyota doesn't give us this in other Toyota products aside from the Tacoma, because this would be great in a Camry, this would be great in a RAV4 and Grand Highlander, and Toyota typically tends to be on the simple side of the technology spectrum where they're not going to give you an immersive experience. And yet, with the 4Runner, that is a different story. So you can customize this display to your liking and showcase relevant information that pertains to you, especially if you are going off-road, such as the tire pressure monitoring system. You also have the ability to turn on or off your safety systems, especially when you are going off-road. So there's a lot of information that's going to pertain to you as a driver and is going to be relevant to you more importantly. This technology, very simple in its way, does remind me of what you are going to find in, say, a Land Rover Defender. So pretty cool stuff here to work with. Then as you take a look at your infotainment system, you have a smaller 8-inch touchscreen with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility. Now, in most rivals and for most vehicles in this segment, I would say find a way to get the larger screen. But since Toyota uses the same software across all trims and across all models, I don't think you need to demand anything more out of this head unit. So on the left side of the screen will be quick access icons, which will get you different menus efficiently, such as your onboard navigation system, which you can subscribe to, your radio, then your Bluetooth connectivity, and then the last two icons will be vehicle settings and general settings. Very straightforward, very easy to use, and I think that for an SUV like the 4Runner, technology isn't what's going to drive you to buy this vehicle. It's going to be its capability and off-road versatility. So technology, I think, is more than adequate for some of you not looking for an immersive experience, but just keep in mind that it is going to be simple and easy to use on a regular basis. On placing the 4Runner in reverse, you are going to receive a rear backup camera with trajectory, and you can also get a 180-degree view as well. But a lot of you might prefer the off-road premium compared to what we have here today to receive the more enhanced safety features, because you don't have a front-facing camera, you don't have a top view or side views. That would be most certainly useful if you are going off-road and you are encountering some decent-sized rocks in front of you on those trails. As we continue on with the rest of the interior, you are going to have physical buttons and dials for your climate control. No dual zone here for the TRD off-road, but you will have buttons for your 3-level heated seats, your heated steering wheel, AC, front and rear defrosters, fan speed, and fan direction, so a tactile experience here for this new generation. Beneath that, you will find your wireless phone charging pad, but there's a couple storage compartments for additional smartphones if you have a passenger up front with you. 2 USB-C inputs. Also, there will be a USB outlet on the right side of your infotainment system, so a lot of areas to connect your smartphone or other devices. For the center console itself, you have your traditional gear shifter here with the TRD badge and logo. That's pretty cool to see. You can have your electronic parking brake, auto vehicle hold. Then, of course, since we have part-time 4-wheel drive, you have your 4 low, 4 high, 2 high, but then you also have a number of different drive modes to work with as well. So you can scroll through sport, normal, and eco, but then you also have your crawl mode, tow and haul, so everything is all right here. You also have your rear locking differential. So this is one of the key differences here compared to, say, a Honda Pilot or Passport. You're gonna have a lot more capability, because again, with that 6,000-pound towing capacity, you can do a lot here with the 4Runner. Now, as we make our way towards the center storage compartment, you will have 2 cup holders here that are of decent size, so you can store your coffee here when you are on those longer road trips. For the center storage compartment itself, it is somewhat deep here where you can store a smartphone, wallet, or other smaller tech gadgets, but I was expecting a deeper storage compartment since this is a body-on-frame SUV. And then to round out the front seating area, above we do not have a moonroof, but hey, you can't have it all here for a mid-tier trim, and some of you might not even want that in your 4Runner. Now, as we continue on, before we talk about the interior dimensions for the second row, we do not get an optional third row with a TRD off-road. It is available for the 2025 4Runner, just not this trim. Now, when you take a look at interior space for this vehicle, you're looking at right on 35 inches of legroom, which doesn't sound like a lot compared to a RAV4 or even a Grand Highlander, but I'm not complaining here. I don't feel cramped or claustrophobic even with the lower roofline. This seat is adjusted most of the way back. It's not necessarily on a recline, but I can stretch my legs a bit, relax, and enjoy the driving experience. So I think that you can accommodate taller passengers in this vehicle. Now, with the Land Cruiser with that higher roofline, it'd probably be a bit more suitable if you have larger occupants in the second row at all times. Now, also thanks to the size of this SUV, I think you can squeeze in a third person in the center. So it is a 5-person SUV overall. That is great to see. Also with the cloth upholstery, it's still comfortable. And to me, this kind of feels old school, which I do like. I'm feeling a bit nostalgic here with this particular 4Runner we're taking a look at today. You are going to have 2 center-mounted air vents to go along with 2 USB-C inputs, a 3-pronged outlet, and then to round out the second row seating area, you are going to receive a center armrest with 2 cup holders. So as we set off with the Toyota 4Runner, I know a lot of you are going to be curious to hear my thoughts on this Turbo 4 compared to a naturally aspirated V6. But I'm going to pump the brakes on that and compare this to the Land Cruiser that I had featured a couple of months ago with the hybrid 4-cylinder. I really didn't like the hybrid 4-cylinder in that Land Cruiser. I felt like there was something missing that didn't fit the persona of the Land Cruiser badge. With the 4Runner though, and this Turbo 4, I actually like it. I do like it. I might be a little out of line here when I say this, but some of you might actually understand exactly where I'm coming from. The 4Runner for this generation feels a little bit old school in its mannerisms, and especially with this Turbo 4, the way it growls, right? This kind of reminds me of an older Toyota 4Runner, just the way it's set up with the cloth upholstery. But this just has a very older JDM feel to it that maybe some of you might not like, some of you might disagree with. But I actually like it. Now, I would prefer a naturally aspirated V6, especially for a vehicle at around $50,000, especially for a body-on-frame SUV. But for a non-hybrid turbo, I like this engine. It feels peppy, it feels spry. This 8-speed automatic shifts rather smooth. And that's really all you could ask for here, especially right now in the 2020s. We'll have to wait and see though, because we now have less emissions regulations. Maybe Toyota gives us a V6. So who knows on that one. But currently, as it stands with the 2025 4Runner, horsepower-wise, engine-wise, I'm not going to complain. Now, when you are comparing this to its closest rivals, like the Ford Bronco, like the Jeep Wrangler, like even the Honda Passport and Pilot, I think some of you might prefer the naturally aspirated V6s. But if you're someone who likes Toyota, likes what they're offering, and likes this particular package, because like I said before, with the 4Runner, you're not taking the doors off, you're not taking the top off, you're just looking for a year-round SUV for you and your family, this might be a great choice. This might be a better choice over some of its rivals. Now also, what you have here with the 4Runner, I think is just a bit better than what you're going to find out of the Passport and Pilot. Mostly because with the Passport, it's a bit more of a softer experience, a unibody chassis. So you're not getting a vehicle that can get you really deep into a forest. The 4Runner can do that. Then getting into the suspension though, with the Bilstein shock absorbers as we're going over the bumps and imperfections here, I actually really like them. I was expecting a firmer, less forgiving experience with the Bilstein shocks. And yet, it handles the bumps really well, and I don't feel abused. I really don't. And that's one of the key differences here compared to so many of its rivals, because again, unibody competitors are just not going to give you this type of capability. Also, ground clearance at 9.1 inches for our model. You don't really need to worry about the snow-covered roadways. You don't need to worry about those trails. So I think what you have here with the 4Runner and this specific trim is a perfect setup. Steering-wise, it is quite light, even in sport mode. I'm currently in normal mode here. But the maneuverability is really impressive considering the size of this SUV. You know, you look at the outside, Tacoma-like, it's actually very easy to get acclimated with if you are hopping in from a RAV4, maybe even a Highlander. Now, the big difference though is going to be your seat positioning. You sit very high up in this model, traditional for a pickup truck or pickup truck based SUV. Nice commanding feel and presence over the roadways with the 9.1 inches of ground clearance. Now, in regards to overall visibility though, you know, nice panoramic view, but the low roof line does affect some of that. The A-pillars are not really that aggressive. I don't think you'll have any blind spots when you are approaching intersections or red lights. Taking a look at your side mirrors, they are massive. I can see what's in my blind spots and the lane next to me, and then looking out back, even with the headrest in the way, I have that clear view behind me. So a lot of visibility on your weekday commutes. But I will say though that for a daily driver, which this could be a vehicle you're going to be driving every single day, Monday through Sunday, I think it does a pretty good job, even with the off-road tuned suspension, even with the ground clearance and the Bilstein shocks. Also, this thing is more than willing and capable to meet your demands when it comes to its performance. Sure, it's not going to be a sports SUV, it's not going to be the quickest SUV out there in a straight line, but it most certainly has the capability to get you out of harm's way when you are getting on the highway, but it also has the ability to get you up to speed in a safe manner. What I also love too is the blow-off valve or the turbo spools. from this engine. It just gives you so much character to the small. Yes, I would love the sound of a naturally aspirated V6, but this Turbo 4 makes a nice noise. Also, it sounds truck-like too, considering the fact we're missing 2 cylinders. On the brakes, really nice here. Very smooth overall. That's one thing that I'm going to say here with the 4Runner and for this particular trim. Very, very smooth. There's most certainly a lot of refinement here to this generation. So I don't know if you can hear that. There's a nice whistle there. I love it. I don't think that's going to be picking up on camera, but it just adds so much to the driving experience. So let's pop it into sport mode because we are going to get on the highway in a few minutes here, and we'll be able to see what this 2.4 is capable of. This Turbo 4 packs quite the punch, and I think it's most certainly competitive with a lot of its rivals that are using V6s. Also, considering the size of this vehicle, considering the weight, it does feel somewhat light on its feet. You know, there's really not a lot of body roll, relatively speaking, considering that we do have a top-heavy vehicle here. And I like that. I like the fact that it drives smaller than it really is. Similar to that Land Cruiser. The Land Cruiser did drive a bit smaller than it looked. And the 4Runner is exhibiting those same attributes, which I'm really glad to see. So getting on the highway here, let's see what this 2.4 is capable of. And in the corners, there's not a lot of body roll here. I mean, yes, when you start getting on it around 40 to 45 miles an hour, you start feeling the weight transfer, but really impressive with its handling characteristics. Now on the highway, we merge very safely, and at 65 miles an hour, which is highway speeds for 495, interior insulation is pretty good here. I mean, relatively speaking, again, we have 33-inch tires, and they're all terrains. And it does feel somewhat composed. Now, there is some vibrations making its way into the steering feel. I experienced that with the Land Cruiser as well, which that's typical for a body-on-frame SUV. Now, unfortunately, we're not going to have the ability to pass some slower drivers here, but let's accelerate. And it does a really, really good job. There's not a lot of lagging here with the performance. Again, this is not going to be a sports-tuned SUV. This is not going to be a quick SUV in the grand scheme of things. But it does more than enough to make you feel as though you're getting a well-rounded SUV. So all in all, after this quick test drive with the 4Runner, this was most certainly worth the wait. I kind of want to experience a few more trims though, one without 33-inch tires. But if you're someone looking for a body-on-frame SUV, because there's not too many like this out there. Remember, a lot of the crossovers that don't have the doors being able to be removed or the top being removed, they're all unibody chassis, and they all drive the same pretty much. Yes, you're going to have the vehicles like the Passport and Pilot, which are probably a bit more unique with a naturally aspirated V6. But even with the Trail Sport trims, you're not going to get an SUV that I think truly compares with the 4Runner, since this is going to be a body-on-frame with a four-wheel drive system. That is going to be the key difference. And I think that if you're someone looking for that type of capability, you want that ground clearance, you want an authentic body-on-frame experience, the 4Runner is probably going to be your only choice here, unless you compare this to that Land Cruiser or that Land Rover Defender. But I think what you have here with the 4Runner for 2025 in this particular trim, I think it's more than enough, and I actually really like what the TRD off-road is offering us. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this quick review for the 2025 Toyota 4Runner TRD off-road. If you did, please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys next time.